This is Different by Nature, the podcast uncovering the interesting and unusual stories hidden in the outdoor spaces around us. I'm your host, Hannah Sayers, and welcome to Real Life Outside. I'm so excited for my next guest. It's a privilege to have you here, Miss Carla Valentine, or Mrs. Carla Valentine.
Thank you very much.
Lifelong bestie, but also amazing nurse woman when it comes to all things. I don't know. How do I describe you?
All dead things.
All dead things.
Although, as we are going to touch upon, I did discover that I have actually got a bit of a talent for keeping some things alive. A child for a start. That's going well.
Wonderful, beautiful boy.
But plants, yeah. And I never really thought I would beforehand because I have worked with so many dead things that it has been a job, not just a hobby.
Yeah.
But yeah, different types. Autopsies on soft tissue, archaeological digs on skeletons.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, human remains which are preserved at Bart's Pathology Museum. So dead things in all their forms. So who knew I'd actually have a bit of an interest in things that are alive for a change.
Yeah, I'm glad I can provide that for you.
Yeah.
So today we're kind of going to talk about how nature might not always be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And we think we understand nature, or we think we understand the outdoors, but it sounds like from discussions we've had that we actually don't. And the more I look into it, the more complicated it seems. But before we jump in, do you want to just tell people a little bit about you and who you are?
Yes, so I'm Carla Valentine, and I'm my main role for sort of over a decade was as an APT, which is just a very fancy way of saying a mortician, someone who does autopsies. So I did, forensic autopsies, all sorts of different ones, really. Lots of chemical, biological, radiological and nuclear, which is special autopsies, CBRN. So you can see already that I'm going to have an interest in, these chemicals and toxins and poisons.
Yeah.
And actually, toxicology screens are pretty much a sort of daily occurrence with autopsies nowadays. So I just want to put that in straight away, because if I do talk about anything poisonous, anything that might kill people, you're probably not going to get away with it nowadays. So just putting that in there, disclaimer.
Great disclaimer. Thanks, Carla.
But then from then I kind of sidestepped into working at Bart's Pathology Museum, built in 1879, and the oldest historical specimen we have is, 150 years old, I think.
Wow.
So a completely different view of, human remains and their preservation. And kind of along with that, I think, like most people, during COVID, I sort of found that, I was going to go stir crazy if I didn't, do something. A lot of people kind of went out into the gardens, didn't they, try and get a bit of fresh air. And because I was writing all about the forensics of Agatha Christie, so my second book was Murder Isn't Easy, the forensics of Agatha Christie. Yeah, I just really found the poison sort of aspect interesting, because when I did forensic science at uni, I had done a special project on poisons, and I'd kind of forgotten about that because it feels like it was a long time ago. So I sort of went, I do quite know a lot about this. And in the Agatha Christie book, I was talking about all sorts of aspects of forensics, blood types and fingerprints and ballistics. But the poisons one was really interesting to write.
Yeah.
And so, that got me really interested in gardening. And of course, me being me, I couldn't just kind of say, I'm just going to do any old gardening. Like, I'm not the person who's just going to grow daffodils and begonias. I was looking at, I know, what a surprise. I was looking at things like poisonous plants, carnivorous plants, and, black plants, dark plants that you don't see commonly because everybody wants like yellow, red, pink.
Yeah.
So I kind of ended up with this whole topic of my own that I call morticulture, because we kinds of like combine death and gardening.
Yeah.
So from there everything's just, I was going to say stemmed. That was not a pun. And the next book that comes out will be Planted Evidence. So that will be all about plants, poisonous ones, how we can use nature to sort of tell if a crime has occurred,
Wow.
what we can find buried underground and how that helps with crimes.
Oh,
So yeah, so
I'll have to get you back on that for that one.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, because it's slightly different. Yeah, so that's where I'm at the moment. And yeah, very happy in it.
Amazing. And you've brought something that looks really harmless with you.
I have. So I have brought. This is my. I mean, I was going to get you to open this. This is my green packaging for my morticulture shop where I sell. Can you open it? Do you want to?
Yeah, can
Yeah,
do. Let's have a look. Oh, it's like a little present, like my birthday present.
I wasn't going to mention that.
Right,
See, this would be if somebody was to buy seeds from the shop that I have, the morticulture shop. There are all sorts on there. So I've got henbane, hemlock, and this is foxgloves digitalis.
Oh my gosh!
So it looks harmless because it looks like a packet of seeds, but you can see on the back on the wax stamp there is a skull there.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I don't know if you can see.
I know. Skulls and crossbones have been used as a kind of notification for something being poisonous since around 1850.
Right.
So, everybody is really familiar with the poison bottle. It's got, the little skull and crossbones. So we've been doing that since about 1850.
So what about this then is like, it looks very harmless, but what about, is it? Like,
no, and that's the interesting thing. So when you plant them, and obviously, you have to be really careful with poisonous plants. There was a time, before Caleb was able to kind of walk around, and we don't have any pets, that I was growing lots of different poisonous plants. And some of them can be quite difficult. As he got older, I just focused more on the carnivorous plants because they're not dangerous at all, and they're also really fun for him to see growing. Yeah. Because the problem with them is they do look so inconspicuous, foxgloves in particular. I kind of chose to bring those in because you can get them in so many colours and they're so pretty, and they're often called fairy bells. And it all, it all sounds very twee. And you see them in cottage gardens, and again, that sounds twee. Yeah. But they're, incredibly dangerous, incredibly poisonous because they contain digitalis. And I think one of the interesting things, that people will ask me or will ask in general, why are you interested in poisonous things? Why, et cetera, et cetera. And because poisons are also medicines, Paracelsus, an old sort of alchemist, said the dose makes the poison, which is true of anything. So you could drink 20 glasses of water, you would poison yourself, right? Because the dose is too high.
Sure, yeah.
And that's the same with things like foxgloves. So you've got digitalis in there, which is now used to treat heart conditions.
Really?
Yeah, in the form of digoxin. So it's extracted, it's made into this, this medicine. And what it does is it kind of regulates heart's rhythms. It helps hearts to pump better. Wow. But of course, it is also used, was, often used to murder people. And there's quite a famous Agatha Christie book called Appointment with Death, where digitalis is used. So it's interesting, I think, that like many people, poisonous plants have two sides of the coin. They have a lot of faces. They can look pretty, and that's kind of the problem, is that they can look pretty or they can look tasty. Yeah. So, but actually they've got all these, different things going on. That's what fascinates me.
So they inadvertently become the murderer.
Yeah.
Nature inadvertently becomes the
killer.
The killer.
Which, as she is wanted to do in lots of different ways. And I think what you'll see most of the time, nowadays, as I mentioned, we do toxicology screens very regularly on cases, but that wasn't always the case. And so we had our sort of proliferation of poisons that, happened. Everyone's kind of familiar with the idea of the Victorian, arsenic poisoning.
Sure, yeah.
Things like that. But now, you get quite a lot of accidental poisonings, more than you would get, ones that have been done purposely. You do still get them, and you get them. I mean, one person got an idea to poison somebody with a compound called thallium, and he got it from Agatha Christie's book, The Pale Horse. So when they, sort of went through his belongings, they found the book, they found it underlined because her knowledge of poisons was so prolific because she was a dispenser in the war.
Oh my gosh.
But alternatively, the same book actually saved two different lives because two sort of separate situations where nurses had patients in hospital and they didn't know what was wrong with the patients. They happened to be reading The Pale Horse, the fiction book, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, this is what's wrong with this patient," and it saved two people's lives.
That's crazy.
Again, on the one hand, it inspired somebody to, commit a crime, but on the other hand, it saved people's lives.
That's amazing. And I know that there are quite a few poison gardens around the country. It's quite interesting to know not that what the point is, but what do you think the ideas behind them have been to create those?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So the largest one is Alnwick Poison Garden in Northumberland, and I think that the point of that one really is, obviously it's fascinating. People are fascinated by poisons because we tend to associate them with a different era. It's just the same way that people are fascinated by murder mysteries,
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to learn the history of those poisonings and the other things those plants are used for.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned in the case of foxgloves, we get digoxin, which is used to treat heart issues. But if somebody accidentally overdoses on foxglove for some reason, let's say somebody mistook the leaves and put them in a salad, the way you treat that is by using deadly nightshade, Atropa belladonna. So isn't that it's so crazy that sometimes the effects of one poison will be so different to another botanical poison. It's like Mother Nature kind of went, well, I know we're going to need both of these things.
Yeah.
So, and there are a few instances like that. I think thallium poisoning you can treat with Prussian blue. There's quite a few instances of that. So
I swear it's like that whole good versus evil, like trope throughout time.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you look at nature, and I know we're going to talk about, the sort of dangers of nature, but nature isn't like inherently sort of bad or good, is it? Nature's just doing what she needs to do. But unfortunately, sometimes we get in the way.
Yeah.
But ultimately, everything kind of balances itself out. So I think that with the Alnwick Poison Garden, there's all of that fascination. But then there's also the aspect of we've lost touch with what a lot of plants do look like. So it is important to know, and belladonna, for example, is one of those plants that kids will, unfortunately, it doesn't proliferate as much as it used to in our woodlands, which is, I'm sure, something we'll come on to. But that would be the one where kids would go, oh, shiny berries, and would eat them. And it takes 2 berries or 2 leaves to kill an adult.
Really?
So we're talking very, very toxic.
Yeah.
So to know what they look like, and particularly when some things look like other things, hemlock can look a lot like cow parsley, which is in all our parks.
Yes, yeah.
But if somebody planted a hemlock thing in there, people would be like, oh, yeah, let's just get that cow parsley, bring it home, and the next thing you've got blisters all over your hands because it's really, really, really dangerous.
That is something that when I was working with young people in open spaces, we actually had to tell our staff to look out for this, and this is what it looks like, and it's not cow's parsley, and to be very, very aware because you would just think it was innocent.
Yeah, exactly, and that's that's kind of the point of a lot of these things. They do look innocent and beautiful. They're trying to attract bees and butterflies, remember, so that they can be pollinated. They're not thinking about us. They were here probably long before we were. So I think it's to get people to know what those plants look like. I think that's useful, and particularly when it comes to things like foraging, because it doesn't even have to be. We're talking about quite extreme examples here, but there are plenty of people who are interested in foraging, particularly now in the sort of advent of climate change and environmentally friendly hobbies and whatnot. And that's great, but there will be some things that look like other things that might give them really bad diarrhea, or it could kill them. Mushrooms, obviously, famously, if you pick the wrong mushrooms.
Yes, the beef Wellington.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It doesn't have to be something that's going to kill you. And when it comes to plants, we teach all our kids just don't pick anything off a plant. Ask us first. Don't because it might not be. We're expecting deadly nightshade to be in Lloyd Park, but we may well be expecting something that's just going to make them feel really poorly. So it's just good to kind of instill that in them. So yeah, I think a lot of it is about education. But there's a very small poison garden, and that's down in Tor Abbey in Devon.
Yeah.
Where obviously Agatha Christie's from.
Oh, yes, of course.
It's where they hold the Agatha Christie Festival. So that whole garden is full of plants that have been used in her books.
Oh, wow.
So there's more of a sort of a different reason behind that. I mean, obviously it also interests people and it, educates them about the plants, but it's kind of to showcase the variety of things that she used. And I mean, I tend to talk at the Agatha Christie Festival.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I'll be there on Sunday, the 20th of September, doing a kind of tea and scandal in the garden.
Oh, amazing.
And hopefully the scandal is that somebody's going to drop down dead from, belladonna in the tea. Who knows?
Allegedly.
So I think different reasons for having them, but, just really interesting nonetheless.
I suppose also it's the element of that, like you said before, it can be medicinal. And I think maybe we've just lost that knowledge over time. And I mean, I don't know really anything when it comes to, unless I went to school or studied specifically around horticulture or the botany of plants, that I would actually know. So it is just a few few things, and it's quite interesting to know that common garden
Yeah.
flowers have like various different like medicinal properties.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think some of us are more familiar with, some than others. So, for
Yeah.
example, most of us are going to associate lavender with relaxing or
Yeah.
chamomile, say,
Yeah.
because of things like herbal teas. And I feel like now there's definitely more of a move to create kind of edimentals. I don't know if you heard about this, but,
Sure.
people are eating like nasturtiums in their salad.
Yes,
Because they're finding out, actually some of these flowers are entirely edible. Like roses, for example. You can just pulverize a rose and make a rose syrup. Have it on ice cream and strawberries. Magnolia blossoms.
I've heard about magnolia.
Yeah, very good in gin.
Oh, well.
But I'm sure lovely on ice cream, but I haven't bothered to try. Not when somebody mentioned gin.
Yeah.
But, even so when we walk through the park to get to the train station, take my little boy to school, and there is a proliferation of something called, have you ever heard of sticky weed? Sticky willy?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And it's everywhere.
Is it cleavers? Is that
Cleavers,
another?
yes, cleavers. And obviously lots of different folklore sort of, names. But it's that you wash it, sort of bruise it a bit, put it into some water and infuse it for half a day, 24 hours. It makes a really refreshing tonic, but it's also very detoxifying. It's good for the lymph system.
Really?
And, a lot of people swear by that, but you would just go past it and think, oh, what's that funny looking weed? And it all sticks together.
You used to throw it at each other as children.
Yeah, and see what sticks. Exactly, yeah. And so you can do that. You can use it in a poultice for skin irritations and things like that. And what people used to use it for, because it kind of sticks together, they would use it to make a sieve. So they would sieve milk with it and things like that.
Oh my
so,
gosh.
Not even sort of talking about medicinal aspects of things or dietary. There are obviously other uses. So I think that's something we've really lost, is that ability to look at something and go, oh, that would be good in a salad. Or because we either don't know, and then we also don't want to do something that might be dangerous.
I also think there's like a bit of oh God, what's the word? Like a stigma against certain things that you see it perceived as a weed.
Yeah.
So like apparently somebody was telling me the other day that you can use dandelion leaves in a salad. And I was literally like, but that's, to me, seems so disgusting.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether that's because I just perceived that as an annoying weed. So it's like, historically, it's like just gone off the radar to not even think about that.
And they say, don't they, there's no such thing as a weed, just a plant growing in the wrong place, right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's
I like
not,
that.
yeah, they're just, you just don't want them between your patio cracks or
I feel like
whatever.
you could use that as like a person.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just a plant growing in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Grow somewhere else.
Thank God.
But yeah, I mean, dandelion, I think, kind of, that's a pretty sort of detoxifying. People usually have dandelion if they're trying to detox, whatever that word kind of encompasses, because we do know that our kidneys can detox themselves, but, a refreshing tonic. But, lots of things like, leaves and stuff like that from what we would think of as a weed. So it is worth getting familiar with them, I think.
Yeah, and I guess as well, we were not really taught any of this in school, which I find crazy because ultimately, like, understanding the environment and understanding nature around you, even if you're in an urban environment, like, is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I necessarily want to be teaching 10-year-olds how to poison each other. But
stay away from that until they're 15. Maybe that's a bad age to introduce them, actually, to something like poison.
Yeah. I mean, I'm presuming that there isn't belladonna just grown just like, you know.
Not so much. And this is the thing, wolfsbane, for example, it used to be called that because, it would be growing everywhere. People would use the poison to put on the tips of arrows to kill the wolves. Now, wolves are extinct and have been in England, I should say, freely, naturally extinct. So we don't have them here anymore. And, with the sort of encroachment of the urban environment on the woods and things like that, you don't get that proliferation of hemlock, foxgloves, belladonna and everything just kind of growing, but they are obviously still in some places. And mushrooms, for example, I think what's quite inspiring as well as mentioning the dandelion and the sort of between the cracks of the pavement or whatever is how hardy these things can be. And every year you'll see things that coming out of a wall or through a pavement. You think, gosh, that's really going for it. Like it's an inspiration kind of. And mushrooms are one of those things, and you'll see so many different types in the woods. And if your child or whatever isn't aware that it could be, say, look at it, it's fine, but don't touch it because then you might lick your fingers. So even in this kind of built up environment, it's still worth knowing about a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And also just because I think it benefits us so much mentally to have, some kind of contact with greenery, have our feet on the grass, look at some flowers.
Yeah.
A lot of us are missing that.
Yeah. And I think kind of like we're losing that knowledge and understanding like how important that is. I feel like that may come back. And I definitely want to educate myself more because I really don't know. Like I try growing some like calendula herbs, and I did try and grow some chamomile to use in a tea, but it was absolutely disgusting. So I think I maybe got the wrong type of chamomile.
Yeah, that's the thing, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, because there are lots of different species of things.
So I was like, oh yes, great, chamomile calming tea, and it tasted awful. So I feel like chamomile's probably the flowers, not the. I don't even know. Do you know?
No, it's the flowers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely the flowers. But again, no, you're absolutely right. It's a really good point because there will be, one let's say family of chamomiles. There's all sorts of different kind of genus and species or whatever that come off that, and there will be certain ones that have got better taste. But I don't even think it has to necessarily be ingesting things as well. I think teaching people and teaching kids about what they can use either from the gardens or the kitchen cupboards to kind of do other jobs like cleaning or whatever, like lemon juice and vinegar. I was scrubbing the steel hood of the oven, which was so greasy, with lemon juice, white vinegar, and I put a bit of peppermint oil in there as well because the vinegar does really smell. But the point is you can kind of look out there and you're like, what can we use? What could we use to make like a tea or something to clean with? But I think you're right. I think it is coming back. I think, and what I'm noticing as well is that a lot of it, I think, to make it acceptable to people, because I can imagine we've had generations of people who think it's very airy-fairy to be, foraging and making your own cleaning things and looking at the phases of the moon, and they're like, what are you talking about? Just go and buy some method from the shop and shut up. I think there was quite a sort of airy-fairy notion about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now a lot of those things are coming back, but they're just coming back in more expensive and fancier packaging.
Oh yeah, I agree. There's definitely like a marketing element to it, isn't there? Like that is like all natural
plant-based cleaners, but they will cost you twice as much as Jif, or so people will go, well, I'll get that because that's going to be better because it's more expensive. But even in terms of packaging things up with their branding, so I one of the things I'd noticed as I was kind of researching for the next book is there's a lot of interest in biodynamic farming and biodynamic like wine vineyards. And I said to my husband, well, I've got to try some of this wine because it's research. But the whole point of biodynamic farming, as well as making sure that you have like quite a natural sort of growth and everything, and you encourage wildflowers, is that you use the phases of the moon. And these wines are expensive, and this is packaged up as biodynamic. Now that sounds like scientific. It sounds like there's years and years of research gone into it, which it probably has, but it was thousands of years ago, and it's now being repackaged to kind of sound like a modern phenomena.
Well, it's interesting as well because if you're looking, I know we're going into a bit of a tangent, but looking at like less ingredients now, so you have like simple ingredients or like less ultra processed food, which I mean I totally agree with, but when you go to buy things that have simple ingredients, they're more expensive. And it's just like,
why?
It's crazy, but I obviously guess because it has a shorter shelf life or something like that, but it does feel bizarre to think that something that would have been easier to make once upon a time yourself is more expensive to buy.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's
definitely, and it kind of comes with like a certain tag, doesn't it? Really, because it has got that expense attached to it. It's sort of it's like it's more, I guess, upper middle class or something. Whereas actually, when you know what I mean. Whereas when it comes to seeds, I mean, anybody can do it. And some of the simplest things are, growing sunflowers, for example. We're not necessarily saying that you should spend your time taking all the seeds out once they're finished and roast them. Although we have done that. It takes a long time. But just look at them. Just maybe wake up and look at them, and they won't kill you. So there's a huge variety of things out there, and we're definitely losing touch with what we can actually just do ourselves. We don't need tracts of farmland. We just need window boxes, pots, maybe a community garden, a community allotment, something like that. We can all be doing it.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to just go back onto what we were talking about previously around how nature can also, well, nature can be a killer, but it can also reveal interesting things. So I know in your book, Murder Isn't Easy, you talk about how Agatha Christie wrote about solving a crime through a dirty footprint with soil on a chair. And also, I know you did a podcast a little while ago where you talked to a lady who managed to analyse things through pollen. It'd be really interesting to hear a bit more about how nature can reveal as well as be the kind of criminal.
Yes, exactly. No, I think it's a really fascinating topic. I mean, and kind of that's why I really want to delve into it way more deeply with planted evidence.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Yeah, so I did a podcast called Mortem on BBC Sounds, and I part of like the podcast was meeting different experts, and Beverly Adams-Groom is what we call a forensic palynologist.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different words. I'm going to stick with forensic botany because it's going to be easier to just describe to people what forensic botany is. But effectively, the word forensic means as it pertains to a court of law, so it's using botany forensically. And she would be able to sort of connect a criminal or a murder victim to a scene by analysing the pollen, because pollen is really hardy. We don't think of it as being like that, but if you think about your allergies, like hay fever, it really gets up your nose, and it's got tiny hooks on it. It doesn't want to come out of there. The whole point of it is to proliferate, like other flowers. So it wants to really hook on. And you can find it even if people clean their shoes really well or their car tyres. And because the plant species that we have, obviously we've said, there's so much urban life, but even in the smallest areas, you will find only one certain plant in 2 or 3 square metre place, because it's somebody's garden, say. And then another one might be on the edge of the canal, which is 20 yards away, and you're not going to have crossover at all naturally. So when you then find those 2 different types of pollen in the same place, for example, or one on one person's shoes, you know that they've been there if they've said that they haven't been. And it's interesting because you wouldn't think she'd have a lot to do, but she does. The forensic botany does kind of get looked into for most criminal cases, when they're unsolved. And she also does the pollen forecasts on the TV. So, somebody does those. Yeah, somebody goes, well, actually, it's going to be quite bad for such and such a hay fever. Because, and there was another palynologist I met called Patricia Wiltshire, who was very heavily involved in really high-profile cases, like the Soham murders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she used to get called, they used to call her Mystic Meg, because what she could be doing it so long, and it was not just pollen, it was various different foliage and, small seeds, things like that. And she would kind of look down the microscope and she would see the different seeds and everything. And then in her mind's eye, she could see exactly how that space would be growing, because she knew all the plants, what size they would be, how tall the trees would be. And she used to sort of say to the police, I'm getting a picture of a place and there's a fir tree here and there's 2 oaks here.
Wow.
And they would go and find it in the woods and they would think that she was a magician. They just thought she was a witch. They just did not know how she could do it. But she was just so good at reading those pollen grains and seeds.
It's such a niche job, but so incredibly important.
Yeah. And it does involve, so forensic botany itself is quite wide-ranging. And as you say, you want to find out on the sort of basic level if a crime has been committed. Well, one of the things that people often sort of say mistakenly is that if you plant a dead body, nothing will grow above it. Some people say, there was a dead body in our garden and we knew it was there because nothing grew above it, as if it was an evil spirit or something. And actually, you're going to find the exact opposite. You're going to find all of a sudden this proliferation of foliage because of the excess nitrogen. Or people can tell how long a body has been in a place because of how the leaves and branches have grown around it. So particularly with things like brambles, because their twigs grow over things and back into the ground and then back out again. So they kind of call it like a sort of walking, jumping plant, but it will create like a cage around things. So you can look and a palynologist, a botanist will say that's been there at least 5 years.
Wow.
And they can tell by the growth. So I think it's something that hopefully will come more into people's sort of general knowledge of forensics soon, because it's fascinating, isn't it?
I really don't think many people know about the wide-reaching kind of like green jobs that we do have out there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point of the podcast, really,
Yeah.
is to look at all nature, different by nature, and like
Yeah.
what we're looking into, all these different things. But that's
There
absolutely
could be
fascinating.
somebody out there with like, you know, a Venn diagram of like, I really like forensics, but I really love my garden, and has no idea that on that Venn diagram there's a little bit that meets in the middle.
There's a wonderful niche.
Yeah, so it is good to make people aware.
Yeah, and I think as well, we'll probably like hopefully come back another time and talk more nearer the time of your launch of your third book.
Fourth book. Well, the third one is out this October.
Yes.
That's The Language of Bones.
Yes.
Which does have a little bit of nature in it, but not too much. And then this fourth one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one because I think that's going to be. I mean, I'm excited for all of your books.
I'm excited writing it, to be honest. It's a really nice one to be writing.
If you need to go to any gardens
or
anything, I'll be there with you.
Trip to Alnwick, Poison Garden.
Yes, please. You can go abroad again if you like. We went to the most amazing, just like for listeners, but Carla and I went to the most amazing place. And it maybe we'll talk about it in another episode, but it was in Austria, called Hallstatt.
Hallstatt, yeah, ossuary.
And it felt like a dream. It was absolutely that was like how nature would literally overwhelmed me, I think, and just like with the mountains and the lakes and everything.
And I think as well it might be quite interesting just to note there that because it is an ossuary with skulls in there with painted on motifs, they were all floral motifs, if you remember. Roses for love, oak for loyalty, things like that. So that will be that all of that sort of bone talk will be in The Language of Bones. But then it's nice to be writing planted evidence now. It's a good time of year for it as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then I'm just kind of like coming towards the end of like our chat. It'd be really good to, you can kind of see that we can't really control the elements of all the different things that we're talking about with nature and what we might know, what we might not know, and into our best of our ability. Like that it's not possible. Like as you say, like nature can grow through like the toughest of cracks.
Yeah.
It's literally just like I'm still here.
Yeah, exactly.
I will survive. But where do you think people maybe go wrong with underestimating nature?
I mean, I think partly it's because, as we said before, a kind of lack of education in a way. Like you wouldn't necessarily know. And so an example that springs to mind is sort of like Japanese knotweed.
Yeah.
You know, which
That
looks
awful
like,
thing.
it just looks like a very boring plant. It doesn't have, bright yellow spikes or anything like that. And yet it's, it causes a huge amount of structural damage. It's really detrimental to sort of local biodiversity. It's really difficult to get rid of. And so now, there are we do knotweed surveys, don't we, when we sort of go to buy a house, because people have started to realise that, it's just a plant. And the same thing happens with ivy. It looks so beautiful, but, there are some people's houses that the ivy is really beginning to sort of grow these kind of thick trunk branches, and it's beginning to ruin the brickwork. So I think it's just understanding that the plants and things, they're just getting on with their own lives, and they want to proliferate, they want to grow, they mind their own business, but they're inadvertently going to take us down with them. So we do have to have a few contingency plans, that's all, and be very careful about what we eat, maybe what we plant where, even if it's something simple, like a particular species, of plant, make sure it will go okay with the other ones in your garden. And
watch out for, if you've got small children and dogs for...
Foxgloves.
Foxgloves. I was going to say hopscotch.
But just and the thing about that as well is I think people will find that there's a lot of plants that they don't know are poisonous that they should check if they have got pets or kids. So lily of the valley is really poisonous. I think daffodils can be. There's quite a few that people will go, oh, isn't that lovely? Or I got this from Aldi and it's beautiful and it's blooming. You actually do need to check. That underestimation of going, well, this one's ornamental and it's in a shop, so it's probably fine. It's not actually the case, and there are an awful lot more poisonous plants than we know about just out there surrounding us. But again, don't get any ideas, anyone, because we do talk screens very frequently.
Well, I mean, it is so much more advanced these days. It would be found out instantly.
Yes,
so.
exactly.
Thank you so much.
No
As
worries.
I knew, I absolutely love talking to you.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
And I look forward to hopefully talking to you soon and reading all your other new wonderful books, which are exciting to know that are coming
Thank
soon.
you. Yeah.
Oh, and if people wanted to follow you or find out or keep up to date, how would they do that?
Yeah, so my website, www.carlavalentine.co.uk, and probably Instagram, which is past_mortem. So that's just named after my first book, Past Mortems.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You were listening to Different by Nature, hosted by Hannah Sayers. You can find more information about our guest and everything mentioned in this episode in the show notes. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.